That's how the Arctic greets you, not with snowflakes, but with a warning. A whisper in the wind saying, "You don't belong here." In 2018, a small rescue team discovered something unimaginable on the edge of the frozen Arctic Circle. A man, alive, standing beside a broken-down cabin that shouldn't have existed. His beard was frozen solid, his skin frostbitten and pale as the ice itself. When they asked him who he was, he simply said, "I thought I was the last man on Earth." His name was Elias Hart, a wildlife photographer from Canada who had vanished 2 years earlier during an expedition to document the melting ice shelves. Everyone assumed he was dead. His equipment was found scattered near a crevasse, and his name was quietly added to the list of those lost to the north. But Elias hadn't died. He had survived in one of the most brutal, lifeless places on Earth. The vanishing. Elias had always been drawn to isolation. For him, silence wasn't empty, it was peace. The Arctic called to him like a siren. In late 2016, he joined a small research group tracking polar bear migration routes near Ellesmere Island. But one night, a sudden whiteout blizzard separated him from the rest of the team. His GPS malfunctioned, his radio went dead. Temperatures dropped below -40 degrees Celsius. For days he wandered, half blind, half frozen, following the faint outline of mountains against the horizon. His food ran out, his last flare never ignited. And then, just when death seemed certain, he saw it. A small wooden hut, half buried in snow, untouched by time. It shouldn't have been there. No maps marked it, no records mentioned it, but it was real. Inside were a stove, a few rusted cans of food, and a journal, written in Russian, dated 1953. The cabin. Elias would later say that cabin saved his life, but also nearly drove him insane. He melted ice for water, hunted fish through cracks in frozen lakes, and burned scraps of old furniture to stay warm. The journal became his only company. It belonged to a Soviet meteorologist named Anton Vasilyev, who had been stationed there during a secret Cold War weather mission. The last page of the journal read, "The snow speaks at night. If you hear it whisper your name, don't answer." At first, Elias thought it was just a poetic warning, but then he began to hear it too. The whispers. The Arctic nights are long, 6 months of darkness. Elias started hearing faint knocks outside the cabin, scratching on the walls, footsteps in the snow when no tracks appeared in the morning. Sometimes the wind seemed to carry a voice, soft, almost human. He blamed it on the isolation, on hunger and exhaustion, until one night, while melting snow for water, he saw something move through the window. A figure standing just beyond the edge of the storm, pale, motionless, watching. He shouted, ran outside with a flare gun, but there was nothing, only endless white. Days later, he found new footprints around the cabin, barefoot, human. The madness of survival. Months turned into seasons. Elias built traps, hunted seals, and learned to read the rhythm of the storms. But with each passing week, he grew less certain of what was real. He started talking to Anton, the dead meteorologist from the journal, as if he were still there. When he looked into the ice, he sometimes saw reflections that weren't his own. When he dreamed, he heard the wind whisper, "Go south." But each time he tried to leave, a storm would rise out of nowhere and force him back. He began to believe the Arctic didn't want him to leave. The rescue. 2 years after his disappearance, a Canadian search plane spotted faint smoke rising from a remote valley, the last place anyone thought a human could survive. When the rescue team arrived, they found Elias outside, staring across the frozen tundra as if waiting for someone. Inside the cabin, they found 2 sets of footprints. One matched Elias's boots, the other bare, smaller, and impossible. When asked how he had survived for so long, Elias said something that chilled everyone present. "I wasn't alone. He taught me how to live here." No one ever figured out who he was. The journal, which had once been found beside the stove, was missing, as if it never existed. The return. Back home, Elias struggled to adapt. The noise of cities overwhelmed him. He slept on the floor, not in a bed. He said walls felt wrong unless they creaked like wood under the wind. He was invited to television shows, scientific interviews, even a documentary deal, but he refused them all. Then, one day, he vanished again, left his apartment unlocked, his phone on the table. The only thing missing was his parka and a small leather-bound journal.